Milwaukee Bucks have made a sneaky signing, bringing in guard Terrence Davis on an Exhibit 10 deal. We're going to break down what the signing is and how Terrence Davis could factor into the Milwaukee Bucks roster this season. We're also going to break down some other moves the Milwaukee Bucks have made in training camp ahead of what's going to be a very exciting regular season for the team. Stay tuned for all that in this episode, but before we get into it, quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. If you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, about 86% of you aren't, make sure to hit that button. We're very close to 1,000 subscribers, trying to hit it before opening night. So if you want to help us towards that goal and you enjoy the daily Bucks content, make sure to hit that subscribe button. But the Bucks made a move today and they brought in Terrence Davis on an Exhibit 10 deal. And this is an interesting signing because most of the Exhibit 10 deals that we've seen from the Bucks and around the league in general have been guys who don't have too much NBA experience and haven't really, won't factor into the lineup. But Terrence Davis could certainly factor into the lineup. See this here literally about an hour ago. The Bucks signed Terrence Davis to an Exhibit 10 contract. And this is from Eric Nem. Again, they're signing him to a Exhibit 10 contract per source. The Bucks are adding one more player to the training camp roster while at the University of California, Irvine. After working out with the team in August, the Bucks are signing the former second-round pick to an Exhibit 10 contract, according to Eric Nem. So, interesting here. So, obviously, Eric Nem of The Athletic said that they're signing him to an Exhibit 10 deal. And we remember we made a video back when they were working him out in August, so a couple of months ago now. We discussed basically how he could be a very interesting player for the Milwaukee Bucks this year if he got signed to a contract. And ultimately, they worked him out. They saw what he had to offer, and he can still hoop at the NBA level, and they brought him in. And we're going to dive into the Bucks depth chart and what they have going into next year. But Terrence Davis is a super interesting player and one of the more interesting Exhibit 10 contracts we will see this offseason. You see this here. Davis didn't see a single minute of NBA action last year and played just 3 games for the G League Rip City remix with Portland Trail Blazers, where he put up 21 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 steals. But he ruptured his Achilles in mid-January 2024 that cut his year short. He's now in the later stages of coming back from that injury. But the more interesting thing here is his seasons prior. So he obviously started with the Toronto Raptors, and you can see this in the 2022-2023 season with the Kings. If you all remember, I remember it pretty vividly. He played 64 games, but only put up 6.7 points. So this was an interesting year for him. It wasn't a great year from a stats perspective when it comes to efficiency or anything like that. But you look at his year before that, the 2021 season, where in 30 games he put up 10 points on a pretty efficient field goal percentage there. And obviously he only shot 42% from the field, but he shot 33% from 30% from 3 on 10 points a game. So he is a very explosive guard. He's a super interesting one, and he's never going to be a super efficient guard. He's never going to be able to, go out there and give you 25 points on an efficient, consistently over an efficient season over, let's say, 80 games. But what he can do is come in, and in this case for the Milwaukee Bucks, he can come in and really provide a spark off the bench. And at this point, the Bucks are kind of bringing in guys that can do that. Now, last year he didn't play because of the injury. The year before he was pretty healthy, put up 64 games where he only put up 6.7 points a game. But he shoots a lot of threes. In that 2021 year, despite only playing 17 minutes a game, he was able to put up 5 3-pointers a game. When you're looking at the Milwaukee Bucks and how their depth chart kind of factors in here to the rest of this year, you obviously have Dame, Gary Trent Jr., Chris Middleton, Giannis, and Brook Lopez factoring in here. And this chart has been changing because we've been using it over the past few videos, and this had Taurean Prince playing the 3 instead of Chris Middleton. But based on what Doc Rivers has been saying, based on what training camp and we'll see obviously in preseason what it's all looking like, it seems like Gary Trent Jr. is going to be the starting shooting guard for this team. And assuming Chris Middleton stays healthy, he will be the starting small forward. And the lineup of Dame, Gary Trent Jr., Chris, Giannis, and Brook is very good. And you look at the second unit, having DeLon Wright and Taurean Prince and Bobby Portis as your 3 main bench guys is very solid. But then you're looking at guys like we discussed in yesterday's video, AJ Green, Andre Jackson Jr., who was their recent first-round pick, who really impressed in Summer League. You have a lot of different guys now that can factor in, and really the most important thing about this is they're going to be battling in training camp and battling for that spot, because there is a world where Terrence Davis goes out and performs really well in preseason because he has that ability. We've seen him be able to score at the NBA level, and it's going to be interesting. And again, if you're unfamiliar with an Exhibit 10 deal, it's a non-guaranteed contract that allows a team to bring a player into training camp, but it also gives that team the player's G League rights. So there is a chance that Davis, usually they'd be able to bring him to the G League, But in this case, it says normally his contract allows a team to convert a player into a two-way deal, but Davis has 4 years of NBA service and he is no longer eligible for a two-way deal. Given that and his ongoing recovery from the Achilles injury, assume that Davis is being briefly added to the larger roster with an eye to a role with the Wisconsin Herd or G League affiliate, and should everything go really well for him, potentially a late season shot with the Bucks. With all that said, welcome to Milwaukee, Terrence. So it's interesting here now because he has played in the NBA for 4 years and he has 4 years of service time, it makes it a bit more interesting because he's no longer eligible for the two-way deal to where they can bring him up and down. And that makes it a bit harder for Terrence Davis to actually crack a spot on this team. So the most likely scenario is that he starts and plays at the G League on a not two-way deal, just a standard contract with the G League affiliate, the Wisconsin Herd. And then he gets called up whether injuries happen or maybe he dominates like he did in his very, very brief 3-game stint last year. But there is spots open for him if guys are unable to produce. Now, it's still unknown kind of what you're getting at a DeLon Wright, but there's a world where he has a down year. AJ Green, our third string point guard, could have a down year. There's a lot of different things, and obviously we're hoping AJ Green is 25. We're hoping he's going to take a step forward, especially after all the praise that Doc Rivers gave him this offseason and saying he's been the MVP of the offseason for them. They obviously have high hopes for AJ Green, so one would assume at this point they're putting AJ Green ahead of a guy like Terrence Davis. But an article dropped kind of factoring in what they think will happen with Terrence Davis. And obviously a solid group the Bucks have put together. You have guys like AJ Johnson, Gary Trent Jr., Tyler Smith, a bunch of guys. It's a mix between a veteran and a youngster roster. But as for Davis, he joins a fiery battle at the two-guard spot, which is packed to the brim. Trent appears to be the obvious starter, like we mentioned. Behind him, any of those players have an opportunity to fight for more minutes. And that's what I've been saying here. Like, he could easily factor in and take AJ Green's spot. He could even maybe take a guy like Pat Connaughton's spot if they decide to move away from Pat Connaughton and get some assets back, given how poor he's been in the playoffs and last regular season. Like, there's a world here where Terrence Davis can step up and actually do some things. And once camp commences, Davis will likely be given the opportunity to join the Wisconsin Herd. And again, it's not a game-changing signing, but it's interesting. And he is a guy who's had success in the past of being a bench scorer who won't put up the best efficiency, but will be able to spark shots and hit three-pointers and just give you energy. 17 minutes a game, 10 points. The Bucks could use that. They could use some youth, and that's exactly what he brings. So let me know in the comments, do you think he's going to factor in, or would you rather see guys like Pat, AJ, and Andre Jackson Jr., the recent draft pick, kind of shine for the Bucks rather than giving a guy like Terrence Davis a chance out there, who's also had some off-court issues as well. But one other thing before we wrap up is Liam Robbins. He is in the Bucks training camp roster for 2024-2025. We weren't entirely sure if this was going to happen. He spent last season with the Birmingham Squadron of the G League. However, he will now have the opportunity to make the Milwaukee Bucks regular season roster. And we covered him in a couple videos ago if you want to go back and check that out. But it's an interesting one. Again, when you're looking at the depth chart here, he's the 5th string center right now. He's a big guy, but he could factor in again. There's just so many question marks for the Milwaukee Bucks this year because of how many spots they have open and how many spots, not necessarily that they have open because their player count is packed to the brim and they have a lot of guys. It's a matter of which one of these guys is going to be able to actually produce because there's a lot of question marks aside from really the top 8 that are pretty set in. But let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this. Do you want to see Terrence Davis on the team or do you want to see them focus on the other guys? Let me know. We'll see you tomorrow.